Today, live from Hall 7, Drupa DNA at Drupa.
It's not a product until it's finished.
Hey everybody, welcome to Podcast from the Printiverse. My name is Deborah Korn. I am the intergalactic ambassador to the Printiverse. More specifically, we are here with the Print Report series, and that means I'm here with my co-host, Pat McGrew. Hello, Pat McGrew.
And hi there, I'm not the intergalactic ambassador to the Printerverse. I'm just sort of a print groupie.
You're a print groupie, and you have, while I have been here running this fabulous forum in Hall 7 called Drupa DNA, where we've been focusing on startup companies and technologies that are pushing the industry forward, you and your little feet have been clocking tens of thousands of steps across the Messe and looking at everything so that we can have nice reports about it for the print report. I would like to say that before we left for Drupa, we did an episode on our predictions of what this Drupa will really be. There are certainly people who want you to think it's the inkjet Drupa, it's the return of the inkjet Drupa, it's the inkjet Drupa 2.0. But we didn't really go that way. I said it was going to be the flexible packaging Drupa. Pat said it was going to be the finishing Drupa. And I would say that if it was a horse race, you won and I placed.
Yeah, but just by a nose. I think
Okay.
it's like the Preakness Stakes, and where they had to put a camera on it and then enlarge it to figure out who won. That's where we are.
I will take that from you, Pat McGrew. But let us talk about finishing, which, by the way, flexible packaging, there's a role for that.
Huge amount of finishing involved.
In that,
yeah.
too. Yeah. We've had this discussion many times about flexible packaging and how I can see the trends in my grocery store. Just the things that are starting to be put on shelves in pouches, and just really the sustainability story around flexible packaging is unmatchable in many ways to the paper versions, which sounds crazy because you think pouch, plastic, but it's not really that simple. But I think that's why there's such an interest in it, because the segment is ticking up. But there is every booth that is selling equipment for the first time. I haven't been to many Drupas, but I go to many trade shows. And the manufacturers don't really have finishing equipment in there. They'll talk to you about what you might need, maybe. Or they'll say, now that you've bought the press, let's talk about finishing. And the printer says, now? Let's talk about finishing. So I think that a trend I've picked up on is that just like there was a little moment in time where they put all the software up front, they're kind of highlighting the finishing this year. Please, take it away.
You know, I think you're right. One of the things that I learned, especially in the last 20 years, printing has become faster and faster and faster. The type of finishing equipment you buy, how you set up your finishing lines, and it doesn't matter whether it's flexible pouches, it's boxes, or it's a transaction print job. The finishing is your gating factor. If you can have the fastest press on earth, but if your finishing is not running to keep up with it, you're not going to be making money, and it doesn't matter which of those segments you're in. So I think that this year, what I was hoping to see was more of the press manufacturers incorporate finishing into their stories. And here at Drupa, we have a unique opportunity. Because of the length of the show, we actually see the manufacturers collaborating and bringing each other's equipment into the stands. So if you walk into the Heidelberg stand, or you go out to the Cunningham Bauer stand in the offset halls, or you go to the Goss stand, you go out into Digital Land in 8A and 8B with Fuji and Ricoh and Canon and even Hunglory and that whole crew. You're going to see finishing there as well, because they've learned as well. They can sell a fast press, but they've got to incorporate and have a story around finishing. So this time, I think we're seeing more finishing running here than we've ever seen before. We're seeing it in press manufacturer stands, and we're seeing the finishing vendors with cooperating with every one of the vendors out there.
Yeah. And it's not just that they are having finishing in line on the
often.
presses
Yeah.
or near line. They are actually creating products here at Drupa that they're finishing live on the Messe. There is a lot of collaboration going on that way as well, which really gives the attendees a unique advantage to be able to see everything from the software that gets it in up into the finished product in one place and not have to run all over the Messe to see it, which anyone who's not at Drupa, there is no running across the Messe. There's a bus that I found that is my new best friend that'll take you to like Hall 13, which is probably about a half a kilometer from here.
So I
right?
did 8.5 miles yesterday, just to give you a sense. And I can't do that in kilometers. Forgive me, my high school math is failing me. But Deborah did find the bus, and I have taken advantage of the bus a couple of times. But generally, I'm moving faster than the bus, so I just kind of power walk through. And I came with my friend Ruth Cobb from New Zealand. We did the power walk from 17 to get here.
Yeah, that's a hike too, and
Right,
it's just
so-
right across.
Right.
So, Pat, the other day, you know me, I find things out that I should have known for a long time ago, but either it finally hits me and I realize the reality of the situation. And we sort of have this conversation with Mechanotechnica.
Yep.
In where we hear all these discussions about workflow, in and out workflow.
Guilty.
And what happened is that somebody sat me down the other day and was like, Deb, there is no magic one end to another. Each of these stations, the press, has its own workflow. The finishing has its own workflow. The secret is making all of those workflows talk to each other. This is your expertise. How is that getting better for everybody now?
So let me do a real quick history lesson. 24 plus years ago, we were talking about a way for all the machines to talk to each other, right? For the presses and the CTPs and the finishing machines to talk to each other. And out of an organization called SIP4 was this idea that we could use a form of XML to let all the machines talk to each other, and we called it JDF. Job definition format. It was going to use a job messaging framework, and it was going to be brilliant, and everybody was going to get along and hug and sing Kumbaya together. So here we are 24 years later, and it's the first time it's actually working because it took, I think, almost until COVID for everyone to realize what happens when things can't talk to each other, when we're not exchanging data in a common format. And so today, if you go into any one of the stands in any of the 18 halls of Drupa, you will find that all of the manufacturers, even if they don't have a fully baked story, they can handshake with JDF data, which means that if I'm a printer and I want a dashboard that really tells me what's going on in my shop, but gee, I've bought presses from 4 different manufacturers, and I've brought finishing equipment, I have my folders and my gluers and my binders are all from different manufacturers. How the heck do I see what all of those are doing? Do I need 14 dashboards? Today, the answer is almost every time no. That there is always a way to get data from more modern equipment. Now, if your finishing equipment is from 1952, the second year of Drupa, the answer is maybe not. Now, we might be able to find a way to get you there using some of the vendors here who do sensors, but if you've got anything that you've bought in the last 10 years, it is very likely that we can get to the data in your finishing equipment, map it into the finishing, or map it into the printing data, your workflow data, your business data. You want a dashboard that tells you if you have enough paper in your inventory to actually complete the job and get it out the door. Now we can handshake with some common data. But your point about workflow being module specific is really important because it's rare today to see a printing company that has one workflow. They have lots of workflows. They have lots of things they've bought, lots of things they've written themselves. And this is the drupa where I think many of those people who wrote their own solutions are looking for solutions that they can now buy so somebody else will take care of them. Because when we start exchanging data with the finishing equipment, we're in a more complex universe than just exchanging with a CTP. Why should I host 20 programmers in my print shop to write a lot of code every time I buy a new machine when I can buy something from a vendor that's supported that I don't have to worry about people retiring, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the world we're living in right now, and it's all very business oriented, and I think that is something that we see more in these halls. It's a business story about print.
It is a business story, isn't it? I mean, I'm so tired of these blanket words: automation, optimization. Well, what are you automating? What are you optimizing?
Yeah.
And can you? I mean, we learned from the inkjet days. We've just built the fastest inkjet press on the planet. Great. There's no finishing equipment that can catch that.
Right.
So you either have to slow it down to a crawl for the other machines to catch it.
Which we see happen all the time.
Yeah. Or you have to invent some finishing equipment that goes faster to catch it.
Yeah.
But I have this is what I call Pat just said something and now I've got a million technical questions about it. But I actually only have one. I have been exposed to companies who really can give you an amazing remote view of everything that is happening on that press.
Digital twins.
Of everything that to know, not in a spy way, but in a business way, is my second shift working as much as they potentially could when nobody's, the bosses aren't there. Has that moved into the finishing area yet? Or do I have in this workflow, this new workflow world, do I have more visibility into those machines?
You absolutely do. So there are a couple of the software companies that specialize in operational efficiency. So the magic 3-letter acronym is OEE. So it's operational efficiency. So think about this. I have even some older equipment. Maybe I've got some finishing equipment I bought in the 1990s. And the thing about finishing equipment, it lasts forever. It's amazing stuff, right? So, but maybe it's not running as fast, so maybe I have 6 that feed one printer, but that's okay. There are companies that can come in, put a few sensors delightfully sprinkled across your finishing environment that will then transmit data to a central dashboard so that even at 3 o'clock in the morning when you wake up in a panic because you're not sure that job that was promised to a customer at 8 o'clock in the morning is actually going to get there, you can actually see the dashboard that says, oh, it's already sitting on the pallet ready to go. Or, oh my God, they've been partying instead of finishing my stuff. But yeah, that software is available. There are several people here in 7 that can help you with that. Also, there are folks like OFS out of Australia. There are people like Spencer Metrics that you will see in a lot of the halls because they work with many of the vendors that will be able to build that dashboard for you. And the thing is that almost all of them handshake. So it doesn't matter whose finishing equipment you have. It doesn't matter whose press equipment you have. They are focused on the operational efficiency aspect, and that's what they build their dashboards to do.
Another trend that I've noticed in my limited capacity of being able to walk around drupa is that I feel like the manufacturers are being more mindful of their customers.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, we're building this equipment because this is the equipment we want to build, and this is the way it's going to work, and this is the way it's going to be configured because this is the way we say it should be.
Because we know better.
Because we know better than the person who doesn't have enough space in their print shop to put this magnificent piece of equipment. So I have been seeing a lot of really interesting configurations
Right.
of finishing equipment. And I have to give a shout out to the Hunkler Star book
Isn't that nice?
that we saw. It was as big as this room, which I don't know how. This is the world's worst podcast. I'm
Yeah,
like, there was
25 but yeah, 25. So let's call it 3 meters by 3 meters.
3 meters. This booth
3,
is
6, 9. So 3, 6, 9. What? Maybe 5 meters by 5 meters. I don't know.
20 by 20. Okay.
3 times 5.
Okay.
25.
25 by 25. Okay. I think this room is a little bigger, but whatever.
Okay.
Okay. Regardless, this machine can be configured in like you can Tetris it as long as it's connected. Are you seeing that trend as well?
Oh, yeah, because you and I were with Mechanotechnica the other day, and same thing, almost same footprint, right? The Muller-Martini solutions, the Hunkler solutions, the Mechanotechnica solutions. If you go over to the Horizon stand, you'll see the same thing. Heck, I saw a box-making machine that I could have fit it in my garage.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I love this. And so, like the pack size machines that you'll see, they're working with the Nozomi people. I think there is now a recognition that bigger and bringing a beast as a finishing device is not going to win you more customers.
Yeah.
Because everyone is worried about the cost of real estate. Everyone is worried about the cost of their buildings, the footprint that the machines take. So everyone is trying to find compact machines that deliver as much power, as much finishing power as possible, but in a limited space. And especially when you start to talk to the new generation of printing companies that are growing up digital from day one, they're not really interested in something that takes a small power plant to run it.
Yeah.
They need something that is going to be a good floor footprint, good on energy consumption, and respectful of the training time required to use it. And all of these vendors that I just named, they have that story.
So again, I've had limited time around the Messe, so I'm going to discuss what I saw, but please fill it in with the other people who are doing this as well. One of the other things that I really loved about the Starbook configuration is that it was a multi-purpose finishing tool.
Yeah.
It wasn't a one-size-fits-all. You could only do it this way. They actually showed 3 books
Different
of
sizes.
completely different sizes, completely different spine widths, completely different cover weights, stock, being finished in line at the same time.
Yep.
And the only difference is that one would be directed one way to the blades, which were already set. No one has to touch them. So multi-purpose tools.
They are.
Really super. Going back to why do I need 6 when I can get one that can do all of those 6 things?
And the really cool thing is that I think all of these vendors got the message that, book run lengths, book manufacturing run lengths are going down. That requirement for different sizes, one after the other. So I need an A4 size, I need an A5 size, I need this, I need that. That's all definitely something that is in their DNA. So love the Starbook configuration, love the horsepower, Swiss precision of it. It's just beautiful. The rest of the line, right, because that's one module of a bigger line that includes things from Hunkler, additional pieces from Hunkler as well as Muller-Martini. But then you will also see Technal. The Italians have a very similar line that uses Technal and Sigma technology. You go over to Horizon, you're going to go see Hunkler with Horizon also working in the same stand with their book finishing and magazine finishing operations. You're going to go over to our friends at Mechanotechnica with their Hunkler and their book automation pieces. And they are all striving for small footprints, energy efficiency, and ease of operation. Used to be you had 4 operators on a book line because every module needed its own person babysitting it. And now you can operate 2 complete book lines with 1 person.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the printed materials was on the same roll.
They are, yeah,
It was
very
just
often.
being diverted by the little barcode
Exactly.
that it was.
We're all barcode driven.
I mean, it was freaking. There's like little conveyor belts. It's very cool, and you could stand in the middle of it, which was a lot of fun too. It's sometimes I'm like, I'm in the press. I'm in the press.
And you stand there with your cup of coffee watching all the books go by.
And I mean, you don't need 20 people operating it. You don't need anybody cutting it. I mean, just the automation is really fascinating.
And that's the automation we should be talking about, right? We need the workflow automation to create highly efficient work channels, right? And batches. And then we need barcode driven, QR code driven, Aztec code driven workflows that ensure that the finishing, which is designed to be incredibly efficient, is allowed to be as efficient as it possibly can. Yeah, I can see. So Deborah is thinking. And when Deborah thinks, I can tell there's a question bubbling up. You're not quite sure how to say it.
Well, you know, this is also the sustainability drupa, right?
This is the sustainability drupa, and an awful lot of the finishing that has been done with print partners is actually being finished for specific causes.
It is, but I'm not really seeing a lot of sustainability story from the finishing companies. Is this just not something?
It's not really how they vocalize.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, their sustainability is more on the energy of it. Is this true?
I think that's a fair comment. The challenge if you're a finishing device manufacturer is that you don't actually know how your finished product is going to be used. You don't know if it's going to be sold, if it's going to be given away, if it's going to be a leaflet at a trade show. You just don't know. And so you rely on the content owners to have that sustainability story in mind. And so I think here, if we're being fair to all the finishing vendors, an awful lot of what they're finishing here is actually for a reason, right? It's actually going to be content that will either be given to different organizations or it'll actually be sold on the streets. In 2012, I worked on something they thought was crazy. We were actually finishing books in our stand that were going to be sold in bookstores the next day.
Yeah.
So this, I think, to your point about their sustainability story, here at drupa in 2024, every single one of these print hardware manufacturers can tell you to the nth degree what it costs to run their solution. And that's so important because in years past, we never had that conversation.
Yeah, and I think that, as brands start looking at their total supply chain to feel good about what they're doing and to be able to correctly and accurately report back to the Gen Zers and the millennials what they're doing, even a printer being able to say our finishing equipment is more energy efficient counts.
Yes, it does.
So ultimately, what have you been able to ascertain any trends that you've seen in the finishing arena at drupa?
Smaller footprint of machine, more energy conscious use of the machine, smarter use of the interconnectability to others, and data sharing. I think all of those things to bring the most efficiency to that part because they know they were playing catch up with the capacity of the presses.
If you were buying finishing equipment, what are some of the secret questions you would ask, or the questions that you think that are the really important ones to get to before you're given all the value propositions?
I want to know if you can handshake with my workflow. I want to know if you can feed me data from the finishing components back into my primary dashboard. I want to know if I can work with you in a barcode manner so that I can ensure that the finishing for a specific product is the finishing I'm going to get so there are no mistakes. I want to know how to work with you to limit the waste. So if you have specific imposition requirements for your particular finishing equipment, I need those specifications. I want to know how much you handshake with the workflow upstream. And if your answer to me is, oh, we really don't do data handshakes and we really can't give you any guidance on the imposition or the ganging or the nesting, then I probably am going to move on to the next manufacturer.
Were there any finishing equipment launches here that were of interest to you?
They're too long to list, so we don't want to be disrespectful to anyone. But what I would tell you is that every single finishing manufacturer, the majors, right, came here with a story. And whether it's the packaging finishing people, the people who are building folding cartons, the people who are building the pouches, right, the Flexo folks, it doesn't matter who they are, the people with production for transaction finishing, direct mail finishing, there is a lot of step change that has gone on. Smarter finishing options, less waste options, faster options. I think there's just so much of it here that we'd be remiss if we tried to start naming them. But I would encourage everyone, if you did not make it to drupa, and you're wondering what all the buzz that you missed was, go to all of your favorite feeds. Go to LinkedIn, look around. Go to, through the drupa.com website, you can get access to the Drupa Daily online, and every day there is a finishing story in there that is worthy of your time to read, to just see how other people like you are thinking about it.
I had mentioned to Mechanic Technica that in my LinkedIn group, Print Production Professionals, I've been seeing an uptick in questions about book finishing.
Oh, yeah.
Did you notice along your travels more of finishing equipment targeted specifically for that?
I think it's two things. I think there is, but it's typically built on a foundation that can be configured for other things. So we've had this conversation quite a bit that books are not books are not books. It might not be a novel. It might not be an education piece. It might actually be an annual report. It might be a pitch book for an advertising agency or a financial services company. So I think the book manufacturing vendors have learned to think outside the book, right, for book finishing. So now also most of these pieces of equipment can also do magazine finishing. So think about it. What is a book? It's multiple folios. Well, what's a folio? It's kind of mini magazines inside the book. So all of a sudden, when we start thinking about other formats, magazine formats are now becoming, what did Mr. Magazine say? The number of titles of magazines is crazy big, but they're smaller in format, they're more customized, they're more targeted. And now the book manufacturers are saying, oh, well, yeah, you can do that on my machine too. So look, here in one footprint, I can help you with books, different size books, different, whether number of pages or physical format size, whether it's sewn book or it's perfect binding, but I can also help you with your magazines. I can do staple binding. I can do all of it for you.
Multi-purpose tools.
There they are. It's the Swiss Army knife of
Well, I'm just saying
finishing,
one finishing piece of equipment to rule them all.
Yeah.
Pat McGrew, it is always a pleasure speaking with you. Some of the information that we mentioned in this podcast will be in the show notes, but Pat gave everybody really great directions. Go to whattheythink.com, check out the library of Drupa Dailies.
You can and it's actually on Drupa. Drupa Dailies are on drupa.com.
Okay, or you can go there. Or you can also, if it's close enough to the show, if you look at hashtag Drupa 2024, you should probably still see a lot of information there. And we will be back tomorrow with another print report. Until then, everybody, print long, finish long, and prosper.